Now, if you missed the start of the show, I showed you the controversial encounter between the outgoing Australian of the Year, Grace Tame, and Prime Minister Scott Morrison at the Lodge this morning. It was really graceless and divisive stuff from Tame, just plain rude and impolite. Let's hope the next Australian of the Year, to be named later tonight, is a bit more unifying, a bit less inclined to get into partisan and polarising politics. But in better news, the government has struck a deal with the original designer and therefore the copyright owner of the Aboriginal flag. Now, whatever your politics, this is a great flag. The design is so strong and bold and distinctive. And I also love the fact that there's so much pride and strength drawn from that flag by Australia's Indigenous people. So it's great that the copyright now is effectively owned by the government and the public, and it'll be protected in the future. And any money raised from licensing under the flag is going to go to Indigenous organisations. So that's just a good, practical and sensible outcome on the eve of Australia Day. Joining me now is the Country Liberal Party Senate candidate for the Northern Territory. Jacinta Price joins us from Darwin. Good to catch up with you again, Jacinta. You'd be pretty happy about the way this flag has sort of been locked away for public benefit?
Oh, look, I think it's great that it's now available to all Australians to be able to be used freely. You know, I guess it's a flag that belongs to us all. Yes, it represents Indigenous Australia, but Indigenous Australia, as we all know, is very much deeply ingrained in our nation. You know, it's the origin of our nation, and so therefore, I think it's great this has come about, especially so close to Australia Day.
Yeah, no, it was well done. Obviously, they hurried the negotiations to make sure it could be done at this time. And speaking of this time, of course, at this time of the year, we always get this debate around Indigenous issues and the date, January the 26th for Australia Day. Yet, again, another poll shows that 2/3 of Australians, or certainly only about a third of Australians, want to shift the date, and most people are quite comfortable with the date where it is.
Yeah, look, I think it's always been what we've really always known, and when it comes to these circumstances and the whole push to change the date, it's come from a noisy minority, and you know, I think it's really good to see that there are different media outlets now recognising that, well, Indigenous people, there is a variety of opinions on many different matters, and particularly also on this matter, and that some of those opinions are now being presented to the rest of the nation. I think for a long time there's been a stereotype, a racial stereotype, that Indigenous Australians all think the same. Absurdly, we don't go to one white Australian leader for the opinions of all white Australians, so we should never do that when it comes to Indigenous Australia. And I think it's great. This is a start also for many other issues regarding Indigenous Australians, and I think it also demonstrates that, you know what, there are a lot of Indigenous Australians out there who, like the rest of the quiet Australians in this nation, want to get on with things and do it together and celebrate what a wonderful nation we have, without trying to disregard history. We can't disregard history. We have to understand it all, warts and all.
Yeah, sometimes I get very apprehensive about this time of the year because the debate is so tiresome. But I hope I'm not being too optimistic. It seems better this year. There's even some sort of activists, Indigenous leaders from the left of politics, if you like, are saying this is not a big issue. There's much bigger fish to fry than this. And others pointing out, well, if you separate the dates, actually, you'll lose this focus on Indigenous Australia and reconciliation. The fact that the date means we talk about these issues together is a good thing. So am I being too optimistic? Are we getting a little bit more mature about it?
No, look, I think that's a great point, and I have to agree. I think we are getting a little bit more mature about it. I mean, obviously, you know, there are a lot of truths that have come out as a result, and yes, we need to have difficult conversations. And I've never shied away from the fact that we should understand our entire history. Last night, I had the wonderful privilege of proposing a toast to Australia Day to the Australia Day Council at the Melbourne Club in Melbourne, and I talked about my family's background, being that I had convicts who were shackled and dispossessed of their own land and brought here against their will. In fact, one, a 17-year-old at the time, forcibly removed from his parents to be brought to Australia as a convict, and they had really, really difficult lives back when many people around the world were having very difficult lives. And I also talked about my grandparents in the desert who first saw whitefellas in their early adolescence and the change that they've experienced in such a short amount of time. And, you know, trauma and suffering is a part of the human condition, and it has affected human beings right across space and time. And the fact that we are now one of the most luckiest countries, one of the most prosperous countries, and a nation that is incredibly peaceful, we have so much to be proud about. And this is what Australia Day is about to me. It's about focusing on those wonderful positives and the efforts that we've all brought together to make this such a wonderful nation. And I think that's what people are wanting to hear, especially after the last couple of years we've had. I think people are realising we need to come together to be strong, to face adversity.
Well said, Jacinta. Hope you have a ripper day tomorrow.
Thank you, and happy Australia Day to you and all the viewers out there tomorrow.
Jacinta Price there live from Darwin. One of the good things about 2022 is she should end up in the Senate. If in the Northern Territory, you've got a great chance to vote for her come May.